When we use the term GNLD difference, we're referring to the facts that really set us apart from the competition. There are so many that we can't list them all, but we're going to tell you about two major differences. First major GNLD difference is our history of scientific excellence. Internationally regarded as a pioneer in toxicology and cancer research, Dr. Arthur First founded the Stanford Cancer Chemotherapy Laboratory and was at the forefront of disease prevention science for 50 years. His discoveries have paved the way for GNLD's products. Founded in 1976 by Dr. First, GNLD's Scientific Advisory Board sits at the core of a worldwide network of leading scientists and research facilities. The SAB seal found on GNLD's products guarantees you the finest, safest, most effective products in the world. The second GNLD difference is the fact that all of our products are based in nature and backed by science. This means that we use only the finest whole food, human food chain ingredients that are backed by the research of world-leading scientists and nutritionists. We invite you to take control of your health and experience the GNLD difference for yourself.
Well, it has been a great opportunity for me to work with Dr. Arthur First. John Miller and I were the first two that he added to his scientific advisory board, so we had a longer opportunity to work with him than just about anyone else. And I think the thing that I enjoyed most about working with Arthur was the fact that he was so honest in his trade. He was a toxicologist, and he practiced it. And therefore, when we would discuss product or product development or product reformulation, he always stepped forward and made sure that what we were doing was the best for the consumer. So it was just a pleasure to work with him and an honor to be associated with him.
Hello, I'm John Miller. I'm the director of the Neolife Scientific Advisory Board. It is my pleasure to be able to tell you about world-renowned scientist, cancer researcher, and founding member of the Neolife Scientific Advisory Board, Dr. Arthur First, and the profound impact he had upon our company and indeed the entire world. From his early academic years, throughout his career as a pioneering researcher pursuing the causes and cures for cancer, he was always looking for answers to questions about health and disease. Over the course of his incredible career, he made the transition from discovering the secrets of cancers and how they occur, to learning how to treat the disease, and finally focusing on how to prevent it from happening in the first place. It was as he was turning his attention to the idea of prevention that he learned of a company dedicated to exactly that same goal. That company was Neolife, and from that point forward a powerful relationship was born that has positively impacted the health and wellness future for millions of people throughout the world. So take a few minutes and join me as I share the story of this incredible man, Dr. Arthur First. Art began to display his unusually high IQ by excelling in elementary, junior high, and high school. With little emotional support and no financial support from his family, Arthur still managed to get admitted to UCLA, the University of California, Los Angeles. Working part-time and even sleeping on the beaches during the summer to save money, Art initially earned his Bachelor of Science degree in chemistry with a minor in physics and education. He followed that by earning a master's degree in chemistry as well as his state of California teaching credentials. It was while at UCLA that he met fellow alumnus Florence Wolovich, whom he married in 1940. Shortly after, they moved to San Francisco, California, where he taught chemistry and some related classes at San Francisco City College, eventually taking a full-time assistant professorship at the University of San Francisco in 1947. In 1952, Arthur left the University of San Francisco to join the Emerging Cancer Research Program at Stanford University School of Medicine. At Stanford, he first earned his PhD in chemistry and then took the position as Associate Professor of Pharmacology and Therapeutics in the Medicinal Chemistry Department. It was while at Stanford that his inquisitive mind and high aptitude for understanding the complexities of human physiology and how it is impacted by the environment and the many things it contains began to open new scientific horizons, particularly as they related to cancer. He immediately began to make an impact. In 1953, Art presented some of his unique ideas to the American Cancer Society and received his first grant for research in this exciting frontier. By 1954, he was a keynote speaker from the Stanford School of Medicine on the American Cancer Society's National Tour of Cancer Research Centers. In 1956, he presented his latest findings on cancer treatment chemistry at the Argonne National Laboratory for their International Conference of Medicinal Chemistry. That same year, he joined fellow cancer researcher Dr. Sidney Farber as an invited lecturer at the Harvard Children's Cancer Research Foundation. In 1957, he was promoted to full professor of medicinal chemistry at Stanford, receiving research grants from the U.S. Public Health Service for his cancer chemotherapy program. He used those funds to design and build a cancer chemotherapy lab, a prelude to the Stanford Cancer Center, one of the most advanced cancer research and treatment centers in the world still today. It was during this time that he and his team proved individual chemicals could be given orally to stop cancer progressing. This was a huge advantage over the need to inject them, and one of the most fundamental discoveries for cancer treatment, opening the door to modern cancer treatment chemistry. For the next few years, Dr. Furst continued to lead chemotherapy research at Stanford and around the world. His work soon discovered that cancer cells can become resistant to individual chemotherapeutic agents, greatly limiting their long-term benefits. By 1960, he and his team once again made research headlines by first proposing the idea of using multiple chemotherapeutic agents simultaneously, and then going on to prove their effectiveness. Referred to as a chemotherapeutic cocktail, this discovery was so profound that it is still the standard by which most cancer chemotherapy is conducted to this day. By 1961, following a decade of cancer chemotherapy discovery at Stanford, Dr. Furst decided to return to his beloved USF, the genesis point of his initial cancer chemotherapy concepts, to form the Institute of Chemical Biology. Soon after, millions of dollars in research grants followed him. It was in this time that his research focus began to change from finding ways to treat cancer to finding out how to prevent it. In the early 1960s, Dr. Furst was already well known for his pioneering work and outstanding contributions to the research and study of metals. From his work at Stanford's chemotherapy laboratory, it became apparent to him that some metals had powerful toxic properties that could cause cancers and other serious diseases. From watching the medical records closely for the previous decades, he had noticed that some industries had much higher cancer rates than others. For example, he saw that men who worked in nickel refineries had a high incidence of nose and throat cancers. Once again, Dr. Furst changed the world of cancer research, showing that exposure to nickel and other toxic metals can cause cancer, something taken for granted today, but a revolutionary idea in the early 1960s. Dr. Furst's work at USF in this area of research got much attention and resulted in factories and refineries across America and around the world having to rethink employee exposure and adjust the ways they do business. Such changes have no doubt saved millions of people from cancer. Dr. Furst's work became so well known that in the 1970s he was recognized by the World Health Organization as the only American member invited to participate in an international committee convened to fight cancer. Later that same decade, he was called upon by the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Labor to help revise the Mine Safety Act, working to protect miners from exposure to the cancer-causing realities of their jobs. He spent a good deal of his time and effort over his years at USF looking into the connection between toxic metals and cancer that resulted in several eminent publications, including the first review that linked trace and toxic metals with cancer in 1960, an entire book on metal chelation in cancer, and a prediction that platinum compounds could be made into chemotherapeutic agents in 1963. He followed this up with the first review of metal carcinogenesis and the first attempt at a comprehensive understanding of the mechanisms of metal carcinogenesis, both in 1969. He would later be the co-editor of a whole book on carcinogenic metals and how to protect from them, that is still regarded as essential information yet today. Throughout the 1960s and into the 1970s, Dr. First continued to lead the way in cancer prevention by expanding our understanding of the causes of cancer, contributing research or publishing more than 100 scientific papers or books on the many forms of carcinogenic compounds that humans encounter throughout life and how to avoid them, from toxic metals to industrial solvents, to drinking water and food preparation chemicals such as bisphenols, aflatoxins, and benzopyrenes, things that still make health headlines today. But back then, he was very much ahead of his time. Throughout these years of his career, Dr. First began to realize that just as some things can cause cancer, others can prevent it. The more he studied, the more it became apparent to him that many of the nutrients typically present in a healthful diet had anti-cancer properties. For example, he had learned how the toxicity of the metal cadmium could be blocked by the nutrient calcium, how zinc and copper could blunt the harmful effects of nickel, how the oxidation pathways that many toxic chemicals use to cause cancer could be blocked by nutrients like vitamin C or beta-carotene. Working at the time in the same geographical area of the San Francisco Bay as Nobel laureate Dr. Linus Pauling, Dr. First would have occasion to discuss vitamin C and cancer connection with him. While Pauling saw high-dose vitamin C as a cancer treatment, First saw it as a means of cancer prevention. From studying the background data on cancer patients at the point of diagnosis, Dr. First had discovered that many were seriously vitamin deficient. From this knowledge, he began to develop and speak about his belief that there was a direct connection between diet and cancer, that poor diets led to higher cancer incidence. But many of the leading scientists at that time thought his ideas were foolish and refused to see the connection. He would eventually prove them all wrong.